Oh man, this should be fun. Off to a great start. Good morning, everybody. I'm super excited to be back. So today I want to talk about something a little bit different. Over the course of the last, year or so, maybe year and a half, I've been spending a lot of time talking with folks in the NAF community, in our customer base, and just generally, really talking about where is network automation, what is the state of it today, where is it going, what are kind of some of the next big things. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this today. But, if you think about really what we're doing all here together, right, and I think that this sums it up beautifully. Why is it that we have been so challenged over the last 15 years to really get a lot of traction? There's been copious amounts of code written, tons of tools developed, lots of methodologies discussed. In fact, Dinesh and I were just talking about this literally 20 minutes before I walked up here, and this idea that we keep rewriting the same stuff over and over and over again, and there's so much out there that we can actually start to take advantage of as we start to approach network automation. However, I also believe that network automation is getting to a point where it needs to be more than just simply the act of doing network automation, and that's what I'm going to talk about here for the next 7 or 8 minutes. But to understand that, we got to think about where are we coming from. So, for folks like me who've been doing this for a long time, y'all might remember, this all started way back in the day of what I call the age of chaos. And in that day, we had things like tickle and expect, and it was a fun time. We were just trying to do anything to make it work, right? Because while it was fun to configure a router for your first time, by the time you entered, VLAN 10, name server farm for the 643rd time, you came to the realization of maybe that's not so much fun to do every single day. So we ended up in this age of chaos where we were just throwing anything at it. And the problem was solved. Well, the problem wasn't quite solved. Then we moved into what I call the age of disillusionment. And at this point in time, the element management system, we all remember the element management systems, right? As they came to take over, we loved our element management systems, didn't we? We had our pretty chassis view, and we could drill into the line card, and it's green, and I'm happy, and life is good. We've got automation solved. Unfortunately, then I logged into my switch or my router, and I looked at the config, and I'm like, where are all these weird commands coming from? No mop enabled. Anyone remember that one? Right? Cisco Works was famous for doing this through the element management. So we gave up and we went back to our CLI and we said, automation is not where we're going. Well, as the world continued to progress, we saw the hyperscalers and the cloud sysadmins, they started to really invest in tools, and we thought, hey, how great would it be if we could use these exact same tools in networking? In fact, something very interesting happened at this point, and I like to call this our age of hope. We actually saw 2 networking vendors come together and actually collaborate on building one of the first iterations of network automation into a framework. And that was done with the NetDev standard lib. And that was done by, of course, myself and Jeremy Schulman, back when I was at Arista and he was at Juniper. We had grand plans for this thing. It was going to take over. It was going to be the solving of network automation. We didn't quite get there. But we did learn something. We learned something very important, and that was it was possible. I think that's what we really took away from that. And that kind of gave way to the true age of progress when we saw Ansible show up, and then we saw a lot of network-centric frameworks start to come out of that. And so now we've got tons and tons of tools, and we start to transition from being just consumers of tools to becoming builders of network automation. And I believe we're sitting right now at the precipice of what I call the age of achievement. And really that's spearheaded by what's going on right here today. This whole conference is all about the age of achievement, where we truly can start to embrace network automation in such a way that we can start to bring value to the organization. So what does my day job look like today, right? So we talk a lot about network automation. What I want it to be is I want to write code. However I define writing code. That could be a playbook, that could be a Python script, that could be whatever you want to define as writing code. That's what I want to do. I want to write code. Because writing code makes me feel good because then I can automate my infrastructure. I want to commit that code. I want to publish that code. I want to do a thing at the end of the day. That's what I really want, right? That's what it's all about. But what's the reality? I go through all of this, and the reality is it looks something more like this, right? I write code, but now I have to support the code. Now I have to train people to use the code. And as I kind of go through this process, I come to the realization that I'm not even a network engineer anymore. I've literally now become kind of this hybrid role where I write code and I support code and I document code, and all of a sudden I've gotten so far away from that simple task of network automation that I don't even feel connected to it anymore. So it creates this very interesting dilemma, right? We've got all of these tools out there, and I want to make use of all these tools, and I want to start to really bring value to my organization. But in order to do so, I got to start balancing all of these things, right? It's not just simply the act of being able to write some code to automate a router or switch or a firewall or a load balancer or whatever your network device is. It's I've got to build these stacks, I got to build frameworks, I got to build UIs, and I'm doing all of this from scratch. And I start to question, what's the point? Well, we believe, or I believe anyway, and through discussions that I've had with many folks, is that while we've focused so much of our time on consuming network automation in terms of creating operational efficiency, it's now time we start to think a little bit differently. We start to think about being a builder of value to the organization. We start to utilize network automation and the tooling that's out there to shift the way that we think about things. And we start to take more of what I classify or what I quantify as a product mindset. I want to start thinking about my infrastructure in a way that I actually build products that I expose to my organization. In order to do that, in order to achieve that product mindset, I really have to bring a lot of different pieces together. I've got to have automation. That is the starting point. There is no question about that. But I want to start building it in a way that I'm creating new value to the organization. I'm not just simply trying to do my job better or faster. I'm actually starting to think in terms of how do I leverage automation in such a way that I can actually bring value now to the organization. I can actually start to develop products that my developers, my customers can start to consume. And I can start to change the way that I actually interface within the organization. Right? I can get away from this idea that I have to be reactive to everything that a developer needs or a line of business needs or my customer needs. I can start to be very proactive, and that all comes from moving to a product mindset, and it starts with automation. We then bring orchestration over the top with it so that while we're automating in all of our different domains and all of our specific domains, we can now orchestrate services right across the infrastructure. And then the last piece of it, and that is how we truly get to achieving that product mindset, is the productization of these things. So we start thinking in terms of what product do I want to build with automation instead of how can I make my operational team more efficient. And that's really kind of the thought going into this. And that's really where I believe that the next wave of innovation is going to come around network automation. So we've been spending a lot of time really kind of thinking about it this way and trying to build a stack that allows organizations to be able to achieve that product mindset and bring together automation, orchestration, and productization so that we can actually start to build products now that can be consumed by our various teams, our customers. And in doing so, it really starts to change the way that we are bringing value now to the organization, because no longer are we just trying to drive cost and efficiency out of network operations. We're actually now starting to create real value. And I'm actually starting to see this with some teams and some organizations. And I think it's a new way of thinking. It's a challenged way of thinking in terms of, I'm kind of challenging this group to start thinking in terms of how do we leverage this technology? How do we start to consume these tools in such a way that we can actually start to build and deliver on products? So with that, I will wrap up my time. But if you want to talk more about the product mindset, come see us at our booth, and I'd be love to chat more with it, hear your thoughts and how we go forward. Thank you.